Hi everybody! I'm here with a friend today. This is Daniel. Tell me how to say your last name.
Zabaljac.
Zabaljac. Daniel Zabaljac. And Daniel is the owner of a business called EZ Sharpening. And it's not because it's actually easy, it's actually because it's named after your wife.
Yes.
And what is her name?
Her initials, Elizabeth Zabaljac.
Elizabeth Zabaljac. We're here to talk about shears today. I know this is not my typical video, so a lot of you guys who are here for hair, this is going to be different than the norm. This is a video that Daniel and I have actually been talking about for months. I think since before Thanksgiving of last year, we started talking about wanting to do this because for me, getting into the hair industry, I hear this phrase a lot that you're only as good as your tools. But yet I see people around me buying these very inexpensive, very pretty shears. I know you've got some examples that we can see. So here's an example. So look at that sparkle. I mean,
that's what gets you.
The new kids out of school, man. That's what we want. So as someone who is new to this industry and new to buying shears, and even for those of us who are not new to the hair industry, we've been buying shears and wondering why they're not staying sharp, things of that nature. I started talking with Daniel about this because I was like, do I really need to spend $600, $800, $1,200 on a pair of shears? Am I only as good as my tools? What does that actually mean? So I started quizzing Daniel and I said, why don't we make a video about this? Because there've got to be other people out there who have these same questions. Where are they going to find the answers? So hopefully this video today will answer some of those questions for you. Okay, so tell me about you. I want to hear about your background because I know that you had a very interesting career before working with Mizutani, before being involved in shears in any way, but it had to do with metalworking. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about that.
By trade, I'm a precision mechanic, and I've been in the metal industry pretty much my whole entire life. When we arrived to the United States in '97, I've been partially in construction and had to work with tools and whatnot, but my passion in general was always precision mechanic.
And where were you from originally?
Originally from ex-Yugoslavia, Bosnia Herzegovina, Sarajevo, and been here for 23 years.
Okay.
So my wife is a hairstylist, and when we moved from Denver to Dallas, every 3-4 months she would come home and there was some kind of problem with a sharpener that sharpened her shears or somebody who sold her some kind of shears, and that was going on for about 2 years. So since I was already kind of in the metal industry, I wanted to research and find out why is she having all these problems. There was always a problem with the actual sharpener, because all it takes to ruin a pair of shears is just one incorrect sharpening, and those blades will never work the way they're supposed to.
When you say the sharpener, are you talking about the tool that would sharpen it or the person who would be sharpening the blades? The person who would be sharpening the blades.
Main problem with her tools, they were incorrectly sharpened, where they would change the type of the edge that's supposed to go on there, angles that should be on those edges. So every time you change that, you're having that shear is not going to be working the way it's supposed to, the way it's designed. So when it comes to somebody who's in advanced cutting, especially slide cutting, chipping, texturizing with your shears or anything like that, those changes on the blade will affect how that tool is going to be working.
So in addition to seeing her blades sharpened incorrectly, what else made you, I'm guessing you probably thought, I can do better than that. Like, I understand this. How did you get into that?
Started as a hobby. I saw her so many times being upset about her tools and not being able to do and perform her job the way she wanted to. Back in Denver, she had amazing sharpener. I never heard her complain about his sharpening or shears or anything like that. But when we moved to Dallas, there was constantly something going on.
And what kind of shears was she using at the time?
Back in the day, she was using Sensei shears, which back then they were running about, I'll say, $600-700.
So are those a quality pair of shears?
They are pretty good quality shears, most definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you moved to Dallas, that's when she started experiencing problems with just having them sharpened correctly. So there was no one here that she could find who could actually service her shears.
She literally tried 5 different guys, and every and each time there was some kind of problem.
And what was the problem? They were just not sharp enough?
If you're doing any kind of a slide cutting, you're supposed to have that continuous motion through that hair. Well, the way these were sharpened, she was constantly catching and kind of rough cutting.
Oh, that's terrible.
Incorrect edge
terrible for the hair too.
Most definitely. Incorrectly sharpened shear will also affect how hair is cut. If it's not a clean cut, usually crushes through hair, which will cause certain issues with that. Usually it's split ends. And none of those things are noticeable until maybe 3-4 weeks later. That's when those split ends are starting to show.
And that's just what you want to give your clients, isn't it? You give them a haircut and then you give them split ends. So that's great.
Yeah.
It's delightful.
Well, that also causes other issues too, because if your shears are causing split ends on your client's hair, product that you're selling to them can't fix that because product is not the problem, hair is not the problem. It's actual tool that was used to cut those split ends.
It's terrible.
That problem will keep on going simply because product is not doing what stylist is telling that client it's going to do, simply because he can't.
Right.
Split ends are caused by shear, not by that product. So product also starts looking bad. They're going to leave a salon and look for somebody else to fix those problems.
How'd you fix the problem for you?
I was literally just playing with her shears. Well,
Getting to know them?
Exactly. First sharpening, she seemed to be happy about it. Second sharpening, she was happy about it. Then she started bringing her colleagues' shears in, and I started sharpening those. So that's pretty much how we started, and now we're 10 years in business. I mean, I started all this 12 years ago, but I wasn't planning on doing a full-blown business like this and working with high-end companies or anything like that. I simply wanted just to help her out.
I love it.
And pretty much that's how everything started with our company.
So before we get into really talking about materials and brands and what to look for and all that stuff, I want to ask you just like some basic questions I have here. So what do you feel like a new or any stylist should spend on a pair of shears? What do you think is a good ballpark, knowing that maybe they want longevity? The other question to that is, if they don't want longevity in their shears, if they kind of want disposable shears, is that an option? How do you respond to that?
You have to do your research and find the best possible tool for whatever amount of money you're planning on spending.
And what are the things you should look for?
If you're expecting shears to be high quality, you will probably end up paying 5, 6, 7, even higher than that.
Okay.
When it comes to how much you're spending versus quality, that's the trick.
Okay.
Any shear can cost $800.
So if I'm going to buy the shears off Amazon, or some of these ones that these hairdressers are now touting as super sharp, but they're $100, $200, what should I expect if I purchase a pair like that?
If you are spending $800, you can spend $800 and get the quality tool. You can also spend $800 and get a low quality tool.
There you go.
Because plain and simple, it's about, a lot of companies will overprice certain items simply because for most of us that seems like if it's expensive, automatically it's going to be quality, which should be. But in this day and age, that's not true. A lot of shears are purchased in China, anywhere from, I'll say, 10 to 25 bucks. They're brought to the United States and sold anywhere from $60 to $1,500. Now, if you don't know better, that price is going to be, if it's expensive, gotta be good.
So how do I know what I'm looking for?
You have to look for markings on the shears. There's a lot of shears they all look alike.
So what are the markings that I should be looking for on shears to know that I'm getting a high quality product?
If you are looking for markings and you expect shear to be a high quality shear, and everybody knows Japanese made shears, but I'm saying made, not Japanese steel, Japanese style, or any of those things. Those are trick words that I can use on anybody to fool them into thinking they're buying high quality Japanese made shear. If something is really made in Japan, you will find marking on an actual shear. If they're made by hand, it's going to be marked handmade in Japan.
Handmade.
Handmade, one word.
One word.
Yes.
Okay.
If it's machined, then they're marked made in Japan. And these are markings that's supposed to be on those tools by federal laws and regulations when it comes to import and exports. Those markings supposed to be on those shears simply because that's the only way to protect the buyer.
Okay.
Because if there's no markings on the shears, I can pretty much tell you they're made whatever you want to hear from me. I can tell you they're made in Japan, I can tell you whatever, and the thing is, it's your word against mine. But the actual proof will be on actual shear.
Handmade in Japan. And you've told me too that the fakers out there will put handmade in Japan. So just by separating the words, they're getting around that regulation.
Biggest problem is a lot of shears that come from China are marked that way, or they don't have any type of markings, or they're just going to say Japanese or Japanese steel.
So 2 questions. What can I expect in terms of longevity of a shear if I'm getting it sharpened every 3 to 4 months?
There is no set number on that. If I'm rougher with my shears, if I don't take care of them like you do, automatically I'll need more maintenance on my shears.
All things considered, you take good care of them. Are these shears that are going to last 5 years? Or are these shears that are going to last 10 years?
If you are going with high-end, high-quality shears, most of those will usually push most of your career.
Oh, wow.
Simply because high-end companies, they don't want you to keep on purchasing same pair of shears over and over and keep on replacing the same thing. Because every shear will function differently. It has a different type of blade, and it's designed for different type of cutting. When it comes to sharpening, how often to sharpen them, again, that's from each individual, simply because what's gonna bother me and my hand, it doesn't mean it's gonna bother you or somebody else.
Okay.
So some people will keep on pushing, even after shear is dull, and you can't, let's say, slide cut anymore or anything like that, they will still cut hair. Except you're forcing them to do cutting.
You're working harder.
Exactly. Your hand is working harder. Your shoulders are paying the price.
And you don't even know it. Probably happens slowly.
Yeah, exactly. Because our bodies are built to adjust to a problem.
Yeah.
If I need to work harder, I'm just going to use more muscle, more power, more everything just to keep on working. The problem is, at the end of the day, most of you guys as a hairstylist, this hurts here.
Oh, yeah.
That's simply because you're squeezing so much more than what you should be in general.
Wow, okay.
So this starts affecting every and each muscle throughout your body.
Okay.
Low quality shear will just have even more impact because you'll have to work even harder to make your cut. Dullest shear in the world, it will still cut hair. Any shear that's handed to you fresh out of the box, it doesn't matter if it's a $25 pair of shears or $1,000 shears, they have an edge on them. They're gonna cut. Most companies like to target younger stylists freshly out of school or even in a school because anytime I walk in a school, I can give you any pair of shears, even a low quality shear. It will actually cut better than the one that you have. You
And
know
so
why?
it will feel new because it's new.
It's brand new, and the one that you have, it's already been used, it's already being dull. So whatever I put in your hands, it's brand new with fresh edge, and they're gonna cut. Also, they're targeting younger stylists simply because I'll hand you that shear. I know it's gonna work for at least 30, 35 days.
35 days. 35 days.
Reason why I'm mentioning that is very simple. Look at your receipt. Every receipt is gonna tell you 15 to 30 days money back. So as long as they pass that 30 days, whoever sold them, he can keep that money.
Right.
With most of our clients, when they're buying shears, and you tested some of our shears too, we hand them shears that are already used, that are already sharpened by us.
Mm-hmm.
So that way I get the client to test how shear feels down the road and what kind of sharpening was performed on a shear.
I love that.
So that way they can test both in the same time. Me just handing them something fresh out of the box, it can be a paper scissor, it's still gonna cut hair.
Yeah.
It has edge on it, so it's still gonna work.
Okay. Good to know. If I'm new to this industry, what's the best way for me to go buy shear? Do I need to walk into a shop like this? Do I need to look on Amazon? Do I need to start my research online? And then if I decide I want to invest in something that's going to last me a really long time, how do I go about making that happen?
Best way to buy shears is actually slow down. Don't rush. Because somebody making you a deal, you're getting a deal. You're not getting what you are looking for. If you're looking for high performance tools, they're sold differently. That process is pretty much explaining the product that you're purchasing instead of telling you, trust me, I'll make you a deal. Salesman never makes you a deal. Salesman makes himself a deal.
Oh.
Plain and simple. I work with different level stylists with different budgets and all kinds of stuff. I try to find out what they're looking for out of a pair of shears, what's their style of cutting, what are their expectations out of a pair of shears. Just a few days ago, I had a lady that was ready to spend about $800-900 on a high quality shear. One thing that she actually said was, I want to buy high quality shear so I don't have to sharpen them. Such a thing does not exist.
That's
so
like,
honest.
So honest.
Well, that's like your client sitting in your chair and telling you, well, I want the most expensive color so I don't have to redo it. That's not going to happen. Every piece of metal, every blade, if it's used, it will dull.
You are one of the few Mizutani dealers in the US. So I feel lucky that you're here in Dallas and I'm here in Dallas and I can take advantage of that in my career. But for people who are not here nearby to you, how do you recommend, if you were going to sell them a pair of Mizutani shears, how would you recommend that they know what to buy? Like in terms of the fit of the hand, because I have borrowed a couple of shears from you just to try them out. One was a terrible fit for me,
Yep.
And then the other was like, it was part of my hand. It was so wonderful. So how do I know what I'm getting, and is there some kind of guarantee? How do you maintain them for me if I am geographically separated from you?
If you're not close enough to us, you can always give us a call. I will guide you through the process. I will ask a bunch of questions. Either way you go, you're still safe, because if you do end up getting a pair of shears from us and you notice it's not fitting you right, it's not comfortable, obviously that's not a shear for you, because shears are something that you're going to be using 8 hours a day, almost every day throughout your career.
So if someone ends up with a shear that's not right for them, do they call you and say, Daniel, these are just not right, I got to try something else? And so you do an exchange?
We'll do exchange.
How's that work?
We'll find a way of making sure they get the right tools. We function a little bit differently than most other companies, is simply because I'm married to that hairstylist that went through hell and back several times, always upset about something. And this didn't just affect her work. It actually, all of that comes home, because being upset at work because of the sharpener or shears or anything at work, all of that comes to our house. Knowing what it takes for a hairstylist to survive and make that dollar, I simply want to help them make more, because I can do exactly the same thing. If their tools are not working, they're not going to call us, and I don't blame them. If somebody comes to salon and they're not happy with your service, they'll just go somewhere else.
So to bring it back to shears and just fit, this is very, just maybe a basic question, but for somebody who has very large or very small hands, case in point, how do you go about, there you go, how do you go about fitting hands to shears?
When it comes to fitting to your hand, a lot of people will grab a pair of shears
that are also small
and start measuring and whatnot.
Oh, so you measure in the palm?
You actually don't.
You don't?
No. Shears, different sizes are simply because everybody uses shears differently. So it can be a same model, but if I'm doing a lot of, let's say, cutting over comb, I want long blades. So even if I have small hands, I want the long blades, because I'm holding the comb and that long edge will be cutting a lot faster.
You can do more at
but
one time.
If I'm cutting palm to palm or over fingers, I don't need 7-8 inch shears. Some people are comfortable with the long shears doing palm to palm or cutting over comb, but in general, you're going with the shear that's most comfortable for you.
Okay.
If in general, if you want to go a little bit faster when it comes to cutting, I want longer blade, because I'm covering a lot more hair and I can go faster around somebody's head.
Makes sense.
If I'm doing detail type work, pixie cuts, where I really need to slow down and pay attention to what I'm doing, I need something slimmer, shorter. People that need a little bit more speed, they will use longer shears.
Okay.
I have one of my clients, he's, I'll say about 6'2", with big, huge hands, shoulders about this wide. He's using 4.5 inch shear. That's what he's comfortable with.
Oh.
I also have this teeny tiny little lady, a teeny tiny little hands. She's holding 7-inch shear, because that's what she likes to use. That's comfortable for her.
Okay.
And if I give her anything different, her hands are not going to be happy. So it's really, when you're picking the shear, it's not about what I'm using or what you're using. It's about what's going to fit your style of cutting the best.
I love that.
All of those things have to come into place in order for you to actually be able to do a job with least amount of work, with the least amount of impact on your hands, because this is what pays the price. It's your hands.
Yeah. What do you recommend to a stylist? I know it depends on what they do in their style, because specialization is obviously huge. What makes up your basics?
Well, basic shear is usually something that I need to have that can do a little bit of everything. That's that starting point. So if I have a pair of shears that I can still slide cut, point cut, do my regular blunt cutting over comb or anything like that, that's the starting point.
You need one do-it-all pair.
Exactly.
Okay.
So when it comes to specializing any tool, you have to slow down and figure out what's your next step when it comes to buying shears. One thing that I learned about Mizutani, and that's why I fell in love with Mizutani, when I was talking to them, first thing they told me is, Daniel, when you sell this shear to your clients, I actually don't want you to sell them this for at least another 10-15 years. It kind of threw me off at first. I'm going, so what's the point? How am I going to survive? Well, he goes, well, I didn't tell you I don't want you to sell. If they purchase this quality tool, they have no need to replace that tool as long as they maintain it the way it's supposed to be. As long as shear is sharpened properly, they don't have to replace it. But that gives them a chance to start specializing other shears that they're going to be getting. So more tools is in front of you, more options how to do your job. I know all of you guys can do a haircut with any pair of scissors. I can give you paper scissors, fabric scissors, whatever. You guys will still achieve your cut. But it's not about will it cut, it's about how it cuts, how it performs. In general, any tool that you're buying in this industry, don't just rush and buy it because somebody's making you a deal.
Get your basic, get your workhorse.
Exactly.
You sell Mizutani, but what other brands do you sell or have you worked with?
I worked with, over 10 years, I worked with probably over 20 plus different companies. But I don't work with all of them anymore. My main focus is Mizutani, because that's pretty much, this is my personal and professional opinion, that's the only company that I can actually trust when it comes to shears. I've been with them for past 7 years. And issues that I had with all other manufacturers and sales and shears and all of that, there's always some kind of problem. I always had to either return money or fix something. So I was spending more time fixing things instead of doing my other job. So with Mizutani, I literally, in 99% cases, I don't have to worry what I sold, because in all of those cases, most of my clients are happy with the item that they got. I know I can stand behind the product that I'm selling simply because I know how it's made, I know its quality, and after all, my wife wouldn't use them unless she likes them.
What if I drop them? How does that work?
Well, you will drop your shears no matter what. And most companies, when they're selling shears, first thing they're going to tell you, these shears are with a lifetime warranty, but never wants to explain what that actually means. Lifetime warranty on any shear, what it means is pretty much,
if there's a defect.
If there is a manufacturing defect in a shear while you're using the shear in a normal conditions, normal condition is shear, my hand, hair, and I'm cutting.
Mm-hmm.
If something breaks, then they're going to cover that because it was used just in the normal conditions. If this is spending more time on the ground and being chucked on a station or kicked around,
it's a personal problem.
Exactly, those things are not covered. But low quality companies, low quality shears are sold with lifetime warranty simply because it sounds great. Well, the thing is, all companies that make shears, they know you will drop your shear. So far in my 10 years doing all of this, I didn't run into one single individual that's hairstylist that was able to tell me they never drop their shears. Your colleague will knock them off your station. Your client will reach for their phone or glasses. They'll knock them off your station. When they see them on the floor, they just pick them up, put them back where they saw them earlier, and that's it. You go grab the shears and going, what is wrong with this? There is what we call maintenance sharpening, and there's a full-blown sharpening. Full-blown sharpening is usually where I literally have to take quite a bit of metal off of that edge, simply because there's too many notches in there or too many dings or anything like that. With the maintenance sharpening, most of those clients that I have, and I have quite a bit of them, they'll notice that their hand is not happy with cutting. They're slowing down, or shear will start tugging, or any of those little things.
What is the maintenance that I should be doing every day on my own shears?
Every day is, first thing that you should do when you come to salon is take your shears and check the tension on them. So you'll hold that, your thumb blade, you'll open that, let them go, they need to stop. If they just close all the way through, that means that blades never touched on their own. Automatically, that's when you're starting to grip harder with your fingers, and you start pushing harder with your thumb to create that tension between the blades.
So the first thing to do is check your tension.
Exactly. But if you're working with the shear while it's actually loose, you will also dull them faster because of that added pressure. You're helping them work.
Oh, okay.
And it's also more pressure on your hands, simply because you're gripping and pushing. Automatically, you're engaging a lot more muscle through your body to make that cut. When it comes to setting shears, most of them will have some kind of screw that's used for adjustment.
Okay.
And this is what we call UFO. They come with a little tool, and you tighten them. Yeah.
Okay.
When it comes to oiling shears, at least once a day. And I usually recommend at the end of the day, when you are done with your shears, when you clean everything, you'll wipe the blades front and back.
That oil is going in here in the pivot, and it's going on the blade.
Exactly. Oil, just one drop there, one drop here, and be careful when you're doing that. That little bit of oil, just run it up the blade. Of course, don't cut yourself, please. I will give you extra Band-Aids, but...
they only last so long.
Yeah. Your oil that you're putting at night will coat all the hairs that are stuck in that pivot point. And next day, as soon as you start working with them, those hairs will start slipping out because they're coated in oil. They're too slippery to follow the blade back and forth, so they'll end up slipping between the blades in the pivot point, and they end up pretty much on the ground.
Okay.
When it comes to oiling, any oil is better than no oil on your shears. So as far as I'm concerned, even a vegetable oil, it's still better on your shears, because what oil does to metal, especially moving parts, is what lotion does to our skin.
It reduces that friction.
Exactly.
What is your favorite oil for this?
I
Castor oil?
always use Mizutani oil that's usually provided with any shear that's purchased or anything like that. Some people use clipper oil on their shears. That's still okay, but clipper oil is too dense. It's a lot thicker than what normally should be used on your shears. When it comes to taking shears apart, I really don't recommend that.
Tell me why. Because I've done it and it was not a good idea.
Exactly. Some shears will have just a simple 1 or 2 piece in a pivot point and just a regular screw. Well, some shears have like 12 parts that need to be put together.
A whole mechanism inside
Exactly.
there. I had no idea.
With those, if you put any part backwards, or if something is chipped or broken or damaged in any way, it will affect how that shear is going to be working.
What is your one piece of advice? What is your one piece of knowledge that if you didn't get to share it, that you would pass along to, you know, the new stylists, the seasoned stylists out there? What would you tell them?
Don't rush to buy something simply because somebody's making a deal. That's the biggest mistake all of us make. And that goes for everything, not just shears, buying a car, buying your shoes, buying anything, because if it sounds too good to be true, that's exactly it.
So if my budget is $200 and I go on and I buy one of those very inexpensive shears, is that okay?
That's totally fine.
Okay.
That's totally fine because
Should
you have to start somewhere.
Should I be expecting to just buy a new pair of shears every year? If that's my budget.
Necessarily that you'll have to replace them every year. Even a low-end shear can push 3, 4, 5 years, but you just end up buying a bunch of them.
And you're buying
and you
it at
keep
paying
on using
price.
the old one for something else, and there's always secondary repair and any of those things. It's not about will that shear cut. It's about how you want them to cut. Sharpening lower end shears, since they're made with low end materials, and you know the lowest end material is usually it's called 420 A, B, or C. That's your bottom line in this industry. You cannot use any other material below that, simply because
420A?
it's called stainless steel.
Okay.
And stainless steel in beauty industry, that's what you have to have as a minimum in order to touch somebody or somebody's hair.
Okay.
From that point, you have 440A, B, and C. That's another type of a metal that's just a little bit better than a previous one. Mm-hmm. The only difference between them is pretty much how fast either one is going to rust. 440 is going to take longer to rust. 420 is going to rust a little bit faster. But in general, any kind of rust on your shears, as a hairstylist, as a barber, or even medical industry, you simply cannot use it on anybody. It's not safe because rust is not something that you want touching your skin or hair or anything like that.
Right.
Higher quality shears are not made just so they not gonna rust as fast. They're made where high quality material used on that shear will also determine what kind of edge can be put on that shear. Because with low quality metals, edges are a lot more on the blunt side. With high quality metals, this edge is going to be a lot steeper. So steeper edge cuts easier and faster. Now, putting that type of an edge on a low quality shear where it's a really steep edge, they're going to cut like butter for first few haircuts, and after that, they're going to dull really fast. Simply because that edge is not supposed to be on that low quality metal because it's not capable of holding that edge for long enough.
Can you tell me anything about the metal composition? What makes it different?
Usually any metals, they have quite a bit of cobalt, tungsten, vanadium. Any of those types of metals will improve what kind of tools are being made.
That's right. You told me one time we were talking about this when I saw you at the UPS place. I ran into you, and you said something about the C for cobalt was like a symbol, and that people were putting it on shears and they weren't supposed to be. But refresh my memory.
Well, it was shears that I did classes with a couple of schools and whatnot, and I was explaining about metals, and I told students, you know, in general, good metals usually will have some kind of cobalt in them, and they'll be quality. Well, a few days later, I had this lady all happy about it, shows me these shears, and on a blade it said cobalt. Oh. She thought she bought the shears that are made with cobalt. And when I looked at it, I'm going, well, yeah, this is cobalt, but it's a name of a brand or tool or whatever you want to call it. This is not the actual cobalt, because cobalt is spelled with C, not with K. Those are tricks that a lot of companies will use to fool you into thinking you're getting something, but it's actually something totally different.
Got it. Well, hopefully this video will help them figure it out.
I hope so.
You have so much knowledge that it's amazing. And I'm
There's so
glad
much
I
more out
was
there.
able to remember just a little bit of our many conversations. I want to thank you again for your time today.
Pleasure.
It's just been mind-blowing how much I feel like I've learned from you, and so hopefully a lot of you guys will learn
I
some
hope
as
it
well.
helps.
So thank you, Daniel.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. What did you say? You can sharpen anything?
Yeah, you can sharpen anything. That's for fast cutting.
This is for
Just one snip, you're done.
We're going to take a little off the top.
Now you know why they say heads will roll.